So at the immediate level, I think something that this has proven is any idea that Donald Trump was not the undisputed leader of the GOP has really been disproven. Maybe not at the base level, but at the very top in terms of the number of officials who are immediately coming to his defense. So let's go ahead and throw this up there. Kevin McCarthy, the leader of the GOP and probably the next Speaker of the House in the election, says this, quote, "I've seen enough. The Department of Justice has reached an intolerable state of weaponized politicization. When Republicans take back the House, we will conduct immediate oversight of this department, follow the facts, and leave no stone unturned. Attorney General Garland, preserve your documents and clear your calendar." So making it very, very clear that this is going to be turned into a big thing. Also, many of the traditional Russiagate defenders coming out of the woodwork. So what we're seeing this morning reporting, Representative Jim Banks, he's been taking a dozen Republican study member committees, these are House of Representative figures, to go have dinner with Trump tonight in Bedminster because he's in New Jersey. So there's going to be some coordination of investigation. Jim Banks, Jim Jordan, many of these other folks made huge careers, Matt Gaetz and others on Fox News and elsewhere as defenders of President Trump. They have longstanding ties, head of the Judiciary Committee, immediately the Judiciary Committee. GOP also reacted. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Here's what they say, quote, "This is what happens in the third world countries, not in the United States. Doesn't the FBI have better things to do than harass the former president?" So what you're going to see is that, remember, these people are going to be in control the next time around. And I think that that very much is going to tell us that they are going to launch a full-scale investigation and that we will likely get a significant amount of information. I mean, this is, as I said, just like the Hillary thing, which is that first it started with the basement, then it started with the actual classification, then what was actually classified and not, then where was it located, who installed the server, then it came into all of the details of the Department of Justice under Barack Obama, how he handled that investigation, Loretta Lynch meeting with Bill Clinton on the tarmac and some sort of weird handshake deal, whether there was any impropriety that happened at the time, then all the drama between James Comey and with Loretta Lynch. So the fallout from this, I think the reason we're spending so much time on is just like abortion, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this legitimately does change everything. It changes
everything
the media landscape. This changes. I mean, we were about to do a whole show on the economy about, all these underlying things. And we're like, frankly, we just have to cover this, not only because we know this will be the biggest story across all three networks. We just know it is going to consume Washington and American politics in the same way that Russiagate did, in the same way that others did. And we owe it to people to try and give the best amount of information because I think people really do need to understand, as I learned at that time, which is the amount of horrific information and speculation that comes out and the level of hysteria that people are reaching on all sides at the height of these things is just, it's mind-numbing. It actually is what ruined politics for me for a time, in 2016, again in 2019, which is that it just, we wanted to do a show on inflation. And this is ultimately when you end up having to discuss.
Well, and look, it's a legitimately gigantic story.
Exactly.
Like, there's no denying that it's massively consequential.
Reading history, it's impossible to not say so.
It is legitimately, historic, for good or bad.
Right.
However you feel about it, it is a historic moment. I think there's a couple things to say about the Republican response here. First of all, there's a lot of Republican elites who have been wish casting that, really the base is moving on from Trump, and the party is actually moving on from Trump. And you may not see it, and he may still be up on the polls, but trust me, DeSantis is really the guy. Oh, really? Because the minute that this came down, there was no hesitation. Mm-hmm. Every media figure, there was all this also maybe Fox News is moving, or maybe the Murdochs are moving on from Trump. He hasn't been on in a long time, all that stuff. No. They were on the talking points immediately that, this is Banana Republic, this is a witch hunt, deep state. They were all in immediately. McCarthy, immediately coming out and saying, hey, if we win the House, this is how we're going to use our time. Not waiting for any facts, the pesky little facts to come out or figure out what's actually going on here. No, immediately we're going to investigate Merrick Garland, preserve your notes or whatever the heck he said, and clear your calendar because we're coming in after you. And I guess that is another piece of this is like Republicans are broadcasting to the American public, like, if you hand us power, this is what we're going to spend our time doing.
They're telling people that, Krystal. They're making that pitch to the base, which is, this is why I actually do think this will energize Republicans for the midterms, which is that beyond more so even than they may have. Just the level of persecution that they're going to feel, and that is going to be not whipped up just on, I mean, look, it's legitimate, right? Which is a historic event. They're going to say that this is one of the only ways that we can defend President Trump. For a Republican base to come out and vote, that's going to be certainly something. At the same time, it will also energize, I think, Democrats, which is that the more this election is about Trump.
It makes this election much more about Trump.
Yes.
And much less about inflation,
economy,
Biden. I mean, the Republican winning hand was Biden, inflation.
Correct.
Don't talk about anything else.
Yep.
Like, that was the winning hand. That hand was already somewhat compromised by the Roe decision, which has forced them into an uncomfortable place and has energized the Democratic base when it was previously demoralized. This now just takes the whole thing up like a snow globe and shakes it all over again. And, you know, there are, as we're laying out for you, I think, there are any number of directions that could ultimately go in. I think the Republican base was already very highly energized to vote in these midterms. The Democratic base was starting to match them in terms of that level of intensity. Now you throw the very polarizing figure of Trump and how you feel about him and what you think that should be done about, you know, his potential alleged crimes that he's committed in the past, and you put him in the middle of the cycle, and that's a whole other wrench entirely that it just is too early to say exactly how that's going to shape the midterms, or if it does. I mean, and then maybe he does announce that he's going to run again and go ahead and launch his campaign before the midterms, which makes this all even more about him and takes the eyeballs off of disappointments in Joe Biden and his stewardship of the economy. There's reporting this morning that Trump is delighted with this, that he thinks this is great, that he continues to believe all publicity is good publicity, that he believes the notion that this will rally the base to him and this will be a great. Of course, I mean, he also doesn't give a shit about the midterms. He only cares about himself.
Yes.
So it, you know, to the extent that he's delighted about being the center of attention again, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how he thinks this will play into GOP performance in the fall.
Look, we have simply no idea.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.